Talk about it now. Hello. Like my midweek vibes. What am I doing? Okay. I'm feeling it today, man. I'm like, I have all this energy. Let's go. This is gonna be fun to edit. Hi, welcome back to my art channel. Today we're having a really good day. I'm an illustration student here in Montreal, and today I wanna talk about critiques and feedback. Yeah. In my last video where I was talking about if art school is really the right choice for you, I glazed a little bit over the importance of seeking out feedback. Today I really want to get into that. I feel like accepting critique and actively seeking out feedback is actually one of the key ingredients that makes you speed up in your artistic progress. Let's talk about it. Right, so number one, I have a list and everything. I have a list of things to talk about with like 2 points that are literally empty. So, number one. Art school has humbled me dearly. Because you know how when people talk about being an artist, generally, they always say stuff like, oh, I've been drawing ever since I can remember. I've been drawing ever since I was a little kid, blah, blah, blah. And once you get to art school, you're not special. Like, that's everybody's backstory. So not only are you gonna start comparing yourself to your peers, but every time you seek out corrections or every time you do a project where they hold you up to a certain standard, you realize that actually there might be some things that you're not that good at, you know? And that's okay. Like, you're there to learn, and that's all part of it. It's part of the learning experience, okay? When I got to art school, there was this teacher who told us about the importance of seeking out feedback and actually listening to what people have to say about your art, like other artists, you know, like within the same environment. It's very important to seek feedback and critique from artists about your art and not just like people who have nothing to do with the art world, because more often than not, they don't have that technical eye to look at your work, and they won't dissect it in a constructive way. They'll either go, I like it, or I don't like it. And maybe they'll give you like a vague reason as to why they feel a certain way about your art, but they won't tell you like, oh, I think that it's because your head might be a little too big, or I think these colors are clashing. Maybe try to put another color next to this one, you know, like that kind of stuff. So that's why it's important to ask for feedback from the right people, because that's the difference between solicited and unsolicited feedback. You know, most times unsolicited feedback comes from people who are just trying to shit talk, honestly. You can tell when someone's genuinely trying to give you constructive criticism because they will pinpoint the things that I was talking about: composition, color theory, proportion, perspective, you know, like they will criticize your work based on drawing principles and not so much on personal taste. Another point is you have to be willing to not only ask for feedback, but listen. Even if you might feel like disagreeing in the moment. Because let's be honest, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow when you spend a lot of time looking at your work and like working on it for hours, and then you notice that something's off, but you already put in so much effort that you're hoping that it's just you and that it's not so bad. It can be very disheartening to hear all the stuff that's wrong about it after all your efforts, you know? But it's very important to just listen and try your hardest not to defend your work in the moment that you're getting the feedback or the critique. You can't really learn if you're defending your mistakes, you know? And even if in the moment you might not consider them to be mistakes, I feel like a lot of times things that I personally felt like weren't mistakes in the moment, in the long run turned out to be true. Like, they turned out to be errors that I was making. In the moment, I wasn't realizing it because I did all my calculations and I double checked everything, and I might have flipped the canvas, although I don't do that enough, to be honest. But you always should. You should always be doing that, because that's honestly, before even asking for critique or feedback, flip your canvas. Flip it. And like, okay, flip your canvas, step away from your artwork, and come back. And then you'll be able to spot
a lot of mistakes
that people will be able to point out as soon as they look at it, because a fresh eye is gonna see that way better than your tired eye from sitting there looking at it for 6 hours straight. But I'm sure you already knew all of that. Sometimes we just have to be reminded of it. Asking for feedback or asking for critique is honestly one of the hardest things you might have to do in order to be able to move forward. It's kind of one of those conversations that you don't really want to have, you know? Like, nobody just goes up to another person like,
hey, can you tear my work apart real quick?
It's not a conversation that you're gonna be comfortable with, you know? But if you have teachers and you can overcome that communication barrier and that shyness and are able to approach them with the right questions, if they see that you're genuinely trying to learn from your mistakes, they will help you as much as they can. And teachers are artists too, so they understand that you have your own kind of like take on the piece and your own artistic style. And a good teacher will not really try to skew you away from that, you know? Like, they will keep their feedback and their critique within those parameters. I use that word. I use a smart word. Yeah, basically, like, what they'll give you constructive feedback on will usually be fundamental stuff like perspective, anatomy, color, composition, you know, things that will improve your piece and skew it in the direction they see that you're trying to go into, but you're not necessarily sure how to get there. So yeah, if you're stuck, don't hesitate to explain to the person you're asking for feedback from what's going on in your piece, what direction your piece is heading towards, and the things that you're unsure about. So that's if you're in school and have the privilege of being among other artists that are super happy to give you feedback on your work, and you can like bounce off each other, or teachers who literally get paid to give you feedback and help you improve. Otherwise, the internet is awesome for getting feedback from professional artists nowadays. Places like Patreon and YouTube and Discord and even TikTok, you can just like actively ask other artists for feedback. This past summer, I made a video on TikTok basically allowing other artists to roast my art, and I filtered through the comments and I found the ones that kept like repeating themselves. And I took notes on that, and I was like, this is great, because, you know, if a lot of people are agreeing on something, it must mean that that thing is, you know, something that I should look further into. There's also this amazing creator that stitched my video and gave me like visual feedback on it. So they took my piece and they went step by step telling me what they think I could do in order to improve it. So that was pretty awesome. It's the best time to be an artist online right now, because there's so many people out there doing portfolio reviews nowadays. There's so many like artists willing to criticize your work, like professional artists that will look at your work and give you feedback. On YouTube, there's the School of Visual Storytelling that also does this kind of stuff. It's a channel hosted by 3 illustration veterans who are in the children's book illustration industry. One of them being Jake Parker, the guy who started Inktober. They have a podcast where I can hear them reviewing people's portfolios, and you can find the video format on YouTube, and you can either take notes from what you see them criticize in those people's portfolios, which sometimes they're really general things that will repeat themselves. So you can like kind of keep a checklist of what keeps coming up, and if that's a reoccurring issue, try to tackle that. Or you can send in your own portfolio and have a personalized critique to see what your specific problems are. Or you can try to find someone who has a very similar style to yours, pay very close attention to their mistakes, and look at your art to see if you're kind of doing the same mistakes and try to kind of level up. On YouTube, I know there's people like Sam Does Arts, who has a Discord server where you can submit your drawing sometimes, and he'll actually like go step by step and tell you how to improve in those areas of your drawing. So that's pretty freaking awesome. So that's an option. Then there's also professional artists that are working in the animation industry here on YouTube doing portfolio reviews. I think it's through Discord and Patreon though, but oftentimes they'll post a video kind of summarizing some of those critiques. And again, you can just look at what they told other people and apply that to your own work, or send your artworks in to them and they'll review it for you. So there's lots of ways to seek out feedback and criticism. You just have to be willing to sit through it and listen carefully and bite your tongue, take all the notes you can, and address those issues that you might be having. So yeah, don't get discouraged by the feedback and the critique, because like I said, if delivered in the right way, there's no reason for you to get emotional about it. There's no reason for you to take it as a personal attack towards your artwork, because most often than not, it's gonna be about addressing drawing fundamental issues that you might be having. Things I always talk about on this channel.
Proportions, perspective, anatomy.
You get the gist. So yeah, don't get discouraged. Keep making awesome work. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need to. Mostly saying this to myself because I'm the first one to be shy when it comes to asking teachers for help. Even though I know I really should be. Like, eventually I have to. There's no way around it, because if not, I know I'm gonna fail my project. But yeah, it's very important to ask for help when you feel like you get to a point where you're stuck and you're not progressing. So yeah, don't be scared, just do it. Bye.